Hey everybody, my name is Stephen Rouk. I'm a data analyst at Mercy for Animals, and I also organize with DXE Colorado. And thank you. I was given the totally feasible task of basically summarizing everything that we know about social movement, research, and science in about 5 to 10 minutes. I said I could do it in 3. There's really not that much there, so just kidding. So anyways, before we start this, I'm not going to be able to cover anything close to the depth that exists as far as sociology, social movement research, just amazing work that's been done. So, if I convey one thing to you today, it's that learning what is out there, learning the history, learning the science, learning the research will add incredible power to your activism, to us changing the world for animals, and we have to commit to that learning on an ongoing basis. So, what I say up here today is nothing compared to you doing the work of 1% day after day, getting a little bit better, learning a little bit more, applying it to your activism, and slowly growing year after year. So, before we get started, I just want to take all the pressure off of my presentation, because like I said, it's kind of all out here. If you are willing to commit to this kind of learning, if you could put your hand up in the air really quick, and repeat after me. I commit to learning, and to taking action, with that knowledge. Awesome. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Just kidding. First of all, let's collect some data. I want to show you how easy it is. So first of all, we just did that, and that was amazing. I wasn't counting though, so that we won't count that as data collection. How many people here have felt challenged or sad by something that has happened so far at the Animal Liberation Conference? All right, I'll consider that 95%. How many people have felt inspired? How many people have felt inspired or uplifted? I think that's even more. Okay, awesome. How many of you are going to go home and start something new that hasn't existed before, whether it's a SAVE chapter, whether it's an AV chapter, DXE chapter, something new? Okay, hold those up. Amazing. Look at all these new things that are going to exist after the end of this week. That's incredible. There we go. We collected data. We looked at it. It inspired us. That's how easy it is. Let's keep going. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 things incredibly quickly here. 3.5% nonviolence and seeking the truth. Super vague, so let's jump in. 3.5%. How many of you already know what this number signifies? Awesome. So this speaks to the power of training and education that's already happened within the movement. I had no idea what this was before also joining DXE a couple years ago. So this comes from research that Erica Chenoweth did analyzing violent and nonviolent social movements from 1900 to 2013 and trying to discover what are the qualities of movements that succeed and do not succeed. And one of the biggest findings that she discovered was that, and these are people trying to essentially topple dictatorships. They're trying to overthrow oppressive governments. They're trying to do things that are in some way, very different from what we're trying to do in some ways, but also potentially, much bigger and more revolutionary, kind of in the classic sense. And she found that it may only take, or that whenever people reach 3.5% of the population mobilizing for a certain cause, they succeeded every single time. If you think that you need 90% of the population to do something, if you think you need 50% or 10%, you only need 3.5% of the population mobilizing toward a cause to change the entire system. And so I'm going to tie in a few pieces of other research and some sciencey stuff here really quick. So we think about why that might be the case. So there's an individual, a statistician, an essayist called Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he writes about how if you have an intransigent minority, if you have a group of people who will not change their behavior, they will not do something different. So you can imagine vegans will not eat a non-vegan meal. Non-vegans will eat a vegan meal. So vegans in this case are the intransigent minority. That they can be like the pink squares here, gradually taking over the entire area of where they are with their ideas, with their ideology, because they will not change. And so if you think about like why 3.5%, like how could 3.5% change an entire society? If you have that group of people who are dedicated, then you can get this going on, and you can change all of society with a small initial group of dedicated people. Reminds me of that quote from Margaret Mead. If we think about why that might be the case, Angela Duckworth, this is some different research I'm going to tie in really quick. She found that grit, or the combination of focusing on the same goal for a long period of time, plus perseverance through setbacks, was one of the biggest predictors of success. It beat out IQ, it beat out a lot of other things. And so basically just if you have something, if you have a cause, if you have a mission like we do, and if you devote yourself to it for a long period of time, and if you keep going through the difficulties and the setbacks, the research shows you will be successful if those two things hold. And yeah, sorry, okay. Number two, I'm gonna jump on to the second point here really quick, which is nonviolence. And this ties in one of the second major findings from Erica Chenoweth's work. So, 26% and 53%. These two numbers are important because whenever Erica Chenoweth looked at the violent civil resistance movements and the non-violent movements, she found that only 26% of the violent movements were successful versus 53% of the non-violent movements. So we've been learning a lot here about Gandhian nonviolence, about Kingian nonviolence, learning about it from a principled perspective, from a theoretical perspective, but also from a strategic perspective. If we want to have a higher chance of success, we should devote ourselves to the principles of nonviolence to increase our odds of winning. I bet there are a lot of people here, myself included, who would not be participating if we advocated violence. This room could be empty if we were advocating violence, and we would not be able to include the majority of society who we need to include in order to change the world for animals. All right, another statistic, 100%. This is the fraction of these social movements. So whenever I said earlier that if a movement reached 3.5% of the population mobilizing, that they were successful, none of the violent movements ever reached 3.5%. The only movements that ever did were the non-violent movements that reached 3.5%. That's what I was saying about all of you would probably not be here if we were advocating violence, and we need those people. All right, this is my final point, so I'll try to make it pretty quickly. Seeking the truth. You're already committed to learning, which is amazing, and like I said, my work is done up here, so this is just kind of me talking now. There is a lot of information out there, and I want to tell you the story about a couple people who I know who embarked and are still embarking on this quest. So my friends over at Sentience Institute, J.C. Reese and Kelly Witwicky, so they have these questions. They have these questions about what's right, what's effective, what's come before, what are we doing, and how does it relate to history, how does it relate to science and research. They had one of these questions, which was essentially, what do people in the movement think right now about controversial topics? What do they think about topics like controversial disruptions, or about institutional versus individual messaging, about welfare reforms? Do those hurt the movement or do they help the movement? Should we use more animal messaging or less? And I want to show you some of the most interesting results here really quick. 3 of the things that 80% of the people asked, and Wayne, I know that Wayne was one of the individuals asked, and a bunch of other people, I'm sure that everyone in this room should be asked on the next one of these surveys, about some of these things. And so here you get an answer about, the activists who were interviewed think that, yeah, we should focus a little bit more on institutional targeting. And that's what we've been talking about, changing systems. We should focus on taking the welfare reforms and using those as momentum, and not saying that we're just going to be complacent because of something that happens, and we should use more animal messaging. They had a question, they did a survey, they got an answer, and now we can see it, we can move on, and we can use it. They also collected some research, so about controversial topics like these, and said, essentially, what's the research that's out there that we can use to inform what we're currently doing? And there's a really great page on their website, on Sentience Institute's website, that's a summary of foundational topics. I would love for you all to go there, to read through it, and to use it as a resource, as a jumping off point for other research, because they annotate everything. There are all kinds of links to them asking the question, what's out there, finding the answers, putting them here and saying, this is what we found, this is what we think the research shows, We're going to give it to you, and we're going to see if you can use it and build off of it. Okay, let's do another really quick data collection thing here. So who has read Why Civil Resistance Works by Erica Chenoweth? All right, well, I was going to say keep your hand up if you've also read these other ones here, but we won't do that. Wayne's read everything, I know that. Okay, who's read Doing Democracy by Bill Moyer? Moyer, no S. Okay, a couple other people. And who's read Strategic Nonviolent Conflict? By the way, I'm holding my hand up here, but I should not be holding them up for all three, so. Okay, so that is, I want to say, virtually 0% of us, if I round down. There is a ton of room for growth here. This is information that already exists about what's been done in the past. There's the quote that says, if you do not learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it. And that doesn't mean that things are going to happen exactly the same. It just means that there are people very much like us who have come before us who have stories to tell about the things that they were trying to do, and we can learn from those stories. We can do the research, we can dig in, and we can make our movement more effective because of it. So I want to issue that challenge to all of you to find these resources and other resources to learn what they have to offer you, and then to use that knowledge to take action and gain power for the animals, to change the world for animals. This is an example of just a very short list of these and some others. I threw up Why David Sometimes Wins by Marshall Gans as well. This is an uprising. Animal Charity Evaluators has some really good information on their site, including what I think is really valuable, which is those links to other sources, because there's so many PDFs, so much research scattered all around the web, that whenever someone puts it all in one location, super helpful. So, with that, I want to take that. I want to challenge you to do that learning. You made the commitment. That's really all that I have to say. Thank you all so much for being here, and let's do this.